waitress unknowingly carries the key to a legendary treasure hidden for centuries. When a billionaire and his friends discover her family's dark secret, they embark on a dangerous journey to unearth the treasure. But as they get closer, they awaken a curse that threatens to destroy everything in its path. With hidden enemies, ancient power, and betrayal looming, will they survive the hunt or become part of the island's deadly history? The afternoon sun filtered through the windows of the small cafe in downtown New York, casting long shadows on the worn wooden floor. The atmosphere was calm, with the soft hum of conversation and the clinking of cups in the background. Mira, the waitress, moved gracefully between the tables, her bright smile a comforting presence for the regulars who had come to rely on the cozy ambiance of the cafe. As she approached the corner booth, she saw him again. The man who had become a frequent guest at the cafe. Ethan Matthews, a billionaire whose name was whispered in the halls of New York's elite, sat with his usual group of friends. They were laughing, their conversation full of energy, but Ethan's eyes seemed distant, lost in thought. Mira had served him coffee on several occasions, yet there was something different about today. She placed the steaming mug in front of him with a polite smile, but as she did, her hand brushed his lightly. In that brief moment, she felt a flicker of something unusual, an odd sensation that she couldn't explain. Ethan's gaze shifted from the table to her hand. It was a split second, but it was enough for her to notice the change in his expression. His eyes narrowed, and for the first time, he looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Excuse me," Ethan said, his voice low but steady. "What is that on your hand?" Mira was momentarily confused, unsure of what he was referring to. She glanced down at her hand, and it struck her immediately. The tattoo. A simple design, but one that had a mysterious history she had never fully understood. It was a symbol she had gotten years ago, a mark that had been passed down through her family for generations. But she never told anyone about its meaning. She hadn't even thought about it much until Ethan's sudden interest in it. "It's just a tattoo," she replied, forcing a small smile. "Nothing special." Ethan's gaze remained fixed on the tattoo. His interest peaked. There was something about it that seemed familiar to him, a connection he couldn't quite place. His mind raced as he tried to recall where he had seen that symbol before. He had studied ancient artifacts and lost treasures for most of his life, and the tattoo seemed to belong to something much bigger than a mere design. It belonged to a tribe he had researched years ago, a tribe known for guarding a legendary treasure hidden on a remote island. The tattoo was their emblem, marking the chosen ones who held the key to finding the treasure. He leaned forward, his curiosity overtaking him. "Where did you get it?" he asked, his voice sharper now. Mira was taken aback by the intensity in his eyes. She wasn't sure what to make of his sudden interest, but there was something in his demeanor that made her feel uneasy. She hadn't expected a question about her tattoo, let alone one that seemed so personal. It's just something my family has," she said, pulling her hand back slightly. "It's not important." Ethan's eyes didn't leave her hand. The more he looked at it, the more certain he became. This tattoo wasn't just a piece of art. It was a symbol of an ancient map, one that could lead to unimaginable riches. Ethan had spent years studying lost treasures, and the tattoo on Mira's hand was the final piece of the puzzle he had been searching for. Mira noticed his intense stare, feeling a sense of discomfort rising within her. She had no idea what Ethan was thinking, but something told her he wasn't asking about the tattoo just out of casual curiosity. There was a deeper purpose behind his words. Ethan leaned back in his seat, his mind whirling with possibilities. "You're not just a waitress, are you?" he asked, his tone shifting. "Your family has a connection to something much older, something significant. You don't even realize it, do you?" Mira shook her head, unsure of how to respond. The question seemed out of place, and she wasn't ready to divulge any details about her family's history. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied, trying to deflect the conversation. Ethan studied her for a moment longer, sensing her hesitation. He could tell she wasn't being entirely honest, but he respected her boundaries. For now, he leaned in closer, his voice soft but insistent. I believe you're the key to finding something. Something that's been hidden for centuries. I need your help to uncover it. Mira blinked, her heart skipping a beat. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Ethan. Matthews, a man whose name carried weight in the world of wealth and power, was asking for her help. She had no idea what he was talking about, but a part of her felt drawn to his request. Despite the oddity of the situation, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was no accident. Ethan continued, his voice low and compelling. That tattoo, Mira. It's the key. It's the map to something that has been lost for generations. A treasure hidden on an island far from here, guarded by a tribe whose name has been erased from history. You're connected to it, whether you know it or not. Mira stood there, frozen in disbelief. She couldn't comprehend what Ethan was saying, but the earnestness in his voice left her with more questions than answers. What was this treasure? And how did she, a simple waitress, fit into this story? Ethan sat back, watching her carefully. I know this is a lot to take in, he said, his voice softening. But I need your help to find it. Together we can uncover the truth. We can find what's been lost. Mira looked down at her hand, the tattoo still there, as enigmatic as ever. She had no idea where this path would lead, but one thing was clear. Her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Mira's mind was racing. She hadn't expected her quiet life to be turned upside down by a conversation over coffee. Ethan's words lingered in her mind, each one pulling her deeper into a world she never knew existed. The key to a hidden treasure. A map embedded in her family's history? She couldn't wrap her head around it. The tattoo on her hand, something she had thought was just a family tradition, now seemed like the beginning of something much larger. But she wasn't ready to jump into this unknown adventure. I don't know, Ethan, she said, her voice uncertain. You're talking about things I don't understand. A treasure map? My tattoo? This all sounds too crazy. Ethan understood her hesitation. He knew it wasn't easy to believe in something so extraordinary, especially when it came out of nowhere. But he had spent years chasing after clues, and every time he tried to make sense of the treasure, one thing always led him back to the tattoo. I get it, he said softly, but I've spent years searching for this treasure and I've never come this close. You have something I don't. Your family's connection to this secret. The tattoo is not just a symbol, it's the beginning of the map. Mira took a step back, her mind still processing the information. But why me? Why now? I've lived my whole life not knowing any of this. Ethan leaned forward, his voice calm but insistent. Because you're the last link. Your family has protected this secret for generations. You didn't know, but now you do. It's time for you to know the truth. Mira's heart was pounding in her chest. She had never imagined that her simple life would be the key to a centuries-old mystery. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan hesitated for a moment before answering. I want you to come with me. Help me find the treasure. I can't do it alone. The idea of leaving everything she knew for something as wild as a treasure hunt was terrifying. But a part of her, a part she couldn't deny, was drawn to the idea. She looked at Ethan, seeing the genuine determination in his eyes. I don't know if I can do this, she said, shaking her head. I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything about treasure hunting or ancient maps or anything you're talking about. Ethan smiled gently. You don't need to know everything. You have the key, the tattoo. I'll guide you. Together we can uncover the secrets that have been hidden for centuries. Mira was silent for a long moment, weighing her options. The quiet life she had known suddenly seemed so far away, almost like another lifetime. But this was something different, something bigger than herself. I don't know what's waiting for us, Ethan, she said finally. But I'm willing to find out. I'll help you. Ethan's eyes lit up with a mix of relief and excitement. Thank you, Mira. You don't know how much this means. With that, he stood up, ready to take the next step. There's no turning back now, he said, his voice full of resolve. We start tomorrow. The first clue is waiting for us, and I believe you already know where it is." Mira's stomach fluttered with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. She had no idea what she was about to get herself into, but for the first time she felt a sense of purpose, a calling. Ethan led her to a small office in the back of the cafe, where a map of the world was pinned to the wall. He pulled out a few papers from a drawer, his hands shaking slightly. Mira could see the intensity in his eyes. "This," he said, laying out the papers, "is where the journey begins." The map was old, faded, with markings that seemed to point to an island in the middle of nowhere. Mira stared at the map, a sense of recognition washing over her. It was as if she had seen this place before in her dreams. Ethan noticed her reaction. "You know this island, don't you?" he asked, his voice soft. Mira nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on the map. "I've seen it in my family's old stories. My grandmother used to talk about it. A place where treasures were hidden, guarded, by a tribe that no one dared to disturb." Ethan's face lit up with excitement. "That's it. That's the place. It's been lost to time, but now we have a way in." Mira felt a chill run down her spine. The thought of going to this island, of searching for something so ancient and powerful, filled her with both fear and wonder. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice shaky. Ethan looked at her, his determination unwavering. "We prepare, we gather everything we need, and we head out tomorrow. The treasure waits for no one." Mira took a deep breath, feeling a sense of resolve settle within her. This was it, the moment she stepped into the unknown. She was no longer just a waitress. She was part of something much bigger. And with that, the adventure began. The following morning, the air in New York felt heavier, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Mira walked alongside Ethan, her nerves still unsettled from the previous day's events. The night had been filled with restless thoughts, her mind replaying the cryptic words Ethan had shared. The treasure, the island, the tattoo. She had no idea what to expect, but the pull of the unknown was undeniable. As they stepped outside the cafe, Ethan's friends were already waiting, in a sleek black SUV. Jake, the rugged outdoorsman with an easy smile, waved at them from the driver's seat. Emily, a historian with an analytical mind, was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes scanning a stack of papers in front of her. Ethan had already explained the basics of the treasure hunt to them, but Mira was still struggling to comprehend the gravity of what lay ahead. Jake looked at Mira, giving her a reassuring smile. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked, his voice friendly but filled with an undercurrent of concern. Mira hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I don't know what I'm ready for, but I'm here." Emily gave a small smile, her eyes glinting with curiosity. "We've all been through a lot to get to this point. Whatever happens, we stick together." Mira nodded, feeling a small sense of comfort in the support from Ethan's friends. She had no idea what to expect, but they seemed like people she could trust. The journey to the island was long and treacherous, filled with more questions than answers. As they boarded the plane that would take them closer to the mysterious island, Mira's thoughts drifted back to the map they had studied the night before. The island was located in the middle of an ocean, surrounded by a series of jagged rocks and dense fog. Ethan had explained that the island was off-limits to most sailors, and only a few had ventured close enough to report any sightings of the ancient ruins hidden there. As the plane soared higher, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. She turned to Ethan, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you ever wonder if we're being followed?" Ethan looked at her, his eyes calm but focused. "We have to be careful. The treasure isn't just guarded by the island. There are others who would do anything to find it." Mira felt a chill run down her spine. She hadn't considered that. If others were hunting for the treasure, they might not be the only ones searching for answers. They could be walking straight into a trap. As the plane descended, the island slowly came into view. The jagged cliffs rose from the sea like a wall, towering over the ocean below. It was both beautiful and intimidating, a place that seemed untouched by time. The island was shrouded in mist, making it difficult to discern what lay beneath the thick layers of fog. Mira's heart raced as they landed on a small strip of land, barely large enough to accommodate their plane. Ethan's friends immediately began unloading the supplies, but Mira couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest. The air was thick with tension, and she could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. They made their way toward the center of the island, following the map that had been passed down through generations of Mira's family. Each step brought them closer to the treasure, but also deeper into the mystery that had eluded so many for so long. As they ventured further into the jungle, Ethan's eyes remained fixed on the map, his mind calculating each move with precision. The dense foliage seemed to close in around them, the sounds of the island's wildlife filling the air. But there was something else, an eerie silence that hung in the air, as though the island itself was holding its breath. Mira's thoughts raced. She had no idea what awaited them, but there was no turning back now. They were too close. As they reached a clearing, Ethan stopped abruptly, his gaze fixed on a large stone structure that stood before them. The stone was covered in ancient symbols, the same symbols that Mira had seen on the tattoo. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized they had arrived. This was it, the first clue. Ethan stepped forward, carefully inspecting the stone. "This is where it begins," he muttered under his breath. "The treasure is here, but we have to unlock the secrets first." Emily knelt beside him, studying the markings. "These symbols, they match the ones on the map. We're on the right track." But before they could continue, a sudden rustling noise interrupted their focus. Mira's eyes darted around the clearing, and she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Something wasn't right. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan's hand shot out to stop her. "Stay quiet," he ordered. "There's someone else here." The atmosphere shifted from tense to dangerous in an instant. Mira's heart raced as she instinctively reached for the small knife that had been given to her for protection. She could hear footsteps now, slow, deliberate, as if someone was circling them, waiting for the right moment to strike. "We're not alone," Jake whispered, his voice low and urgent. "Stay close." Ethan's eyes scanned the jungle around them, his expression grim. "We have to move quickly. They can't find us before we solve this." As the footsteps grew louder, Mira's mind raced. Who else was hunting for the treasure? And what would they do to stop them? The unknown dangers of the island were closing in, and there was no way of knowing who or what was lurking just beyond the trees. Ethan turned to Mira, his voice calm but commanding. "You're with us now. Stay focused. We're getting that treasure, no matter what it takes." The air was thick with tension as Mira clutched the knife in her hand, her senses heightened. Every rustle of the leaves, every snap of a twig seemed amplified, echoing through the silent jungle. Ethan, Jake, and Emily moved closer, instinctively forming a protective circle around her. The footsteps grew louder, and Mira could feel her pulse racing. Whoever was following them was close. Too close. "Stay quiet," Ethan whispered urgently, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We don't know who or what's out there." Mira nodded, trying to steady her breathing. She couldn't afford to panic, not now. She had already stepped into a world of danger, and there was no turning back. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence enveloped the group. Mira's heart skipped a beat. Had they been spotted? Was this the moment they'd been waiting for? Ethan's hand shot up, signaling the others to stay still. Slowly, he began to move, cautiously stepping forward. The rustling continued, but it wasn't just one person. It was multiple people, circling them, closing in from every direction. Mira's mind raced. Who were these people? Had they been sent to stop them from finding the treasure? Ethan motioned to Jake and Emily, and the three of them started moving, quietly through the underbrush, positioning themselves to confront whatever or whoever was lurking just beyond the shadows. Mira stayed close behind, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Jake muttered, as he crouched down, his eyes narrowing. "This feels like a trap." Emily, the ever-analytical one, nodded in agreement. "We need to be careful. Whoever is out there knows we're here. They've been tracking us. Mira felt a shiver run down her spine. Could they have been followed from the moment they stepped foot on the island? Had someone been waiting for them all along? The jungle seemed to hold its breath as they continued forward. Every step felt like an eternity, each second stretching out in front of them. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Mira caught movement. It was fast, darting between the trees. She froze. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Ethan motioned for her to stay quiet, then signaled Jake and Emily to move out. He had seen it too. The figure had vanished just as quickly as it had appeared, but Ethan knew one thing for sure. They were not alone. "Move quickly," Ethan ordered. "We don't have much time before they find us." They pushed through the dense foliage, moving towards the stone structure where the symbols had been carved. The clearing was just ahead, but as they approached, Mira felt the ground beneath her feet shift. She looked down, her eyes widening in alarm. The ground wasn't solid, it was loose, like sand. "Wait!" she shouted, but it was too late. As she stepped forward, the earth beneath her gave way, and with a sudden horrifying drop, she plunged into the darkness below. Her scream was cut off as she fell, the ground disappearing from beneath her feet. Ethan's voice echoed in the distance. "Mira!" He reached for her, but it was no use. The fall had been too sudden, too fast. Mira's heart raced as she landed with a heavy thud, pain shooting through her body. The world around her spun, and for a moment, everything went black. When she opened her eyes, the world was still. She could feel the damp earth beneath her, and the faintest glimmer of light above. She slowly pushed herself up, groaning with the effort. Her head throbbed, and she could taste the blood in her mouth. But she wasn't dead. Not yet. She glanced around. She was in a cave. The walls were jagged, the air cool and damp. It was dark, but the faintest glow illuminated the path ahead. The light was coming from deep within the cave, as though something was drawing her toward it. As she stood trying to steady herself, she heard voices above. "Mira," Ethan's voice, and called out again. But she couldn't answer. She was trapped, alone in the dark. Her heart raced, but she knew one thing for sure. She had to move. She had to find the treasure. Slowly, she made her way down the narrow path, her feet slipping on the wet stone. The glow ahead was growing brighter, and soon she found herself standing in front of a massive stone door. The door was carved with intricate symbols, the same ones that had been on the map. Mira's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The treasure was inside. She stepped closer, her fingers tracing the symbols. They were familiar, but there was something more, something hidden within the carvings. As she studied the door, a sudden realization struck her. The tattoo on her hand, the one she had carried for so many years, matched the pattern on the door. She pressed her palm against the stone, the tattoo seeming to pulse in response. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a room bathed in an eerie golden light. The air inside was thick with the scent of ancient dust and forgotten secrets. Mira stepped inside, her breath catching in her throat. The treasure wasn't just gold or jewels. It was something far older, something that had been waiting for centuries to be uncovered. As she took a step forward, a shadow moved behind her. Someone was following her. She wasn't alone, and she had no idea who or what was closing in on her. Mira's pulse raced as she stepped further into the cave, her senses alert to every sound and shadow. The golden light from within the room shimmered, casting eerie reflections on the walls, illuminating ancient artifacts and treasures that lay hidden in the dark corners. But something about this place felt off. The treasure that had been hidden for centuries wasn't just an object to be claimed. It was a force of some kind, waiting to be unlocked. As she ventured deeper into the room, the heavy door behind her creaked shut, trapping her inside. The sound echoed, sending a chill down her spine. She wasn't sure if it was the isolation of the cave or the rising sense of danger that made her heart pound, but something was definitely wrong. Mira paused in front of an intricately carved pedestal at the center of the room. On top of it lay an ancient chest, its surface covered in thick dust, as if no one had touched it for centuries. The chest seemed almost alive, its carvings shifting and changing in the flickering light. There was a power to it, a presence. The chest wasn't just a treasure, it was a key to something more. She stepped closer, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch it. But as her fingers brushed the chest, a sudden noise behind her froze her in place. Footsteps. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. Someone was following her, moving quietly through the shadows. Mira whipped around, her heart skipping a beat, but she saw no one. The room was empty, save for the artifacts scattered across the stone floor. But she wasn't alone. She could feel it. "Ethan?" she called out softly, her voice echoing off the cavern walls. No response. Panic began to rise in her chest. The footsteps were getting louder and they were coming closer. She reached for the knife strapped to her waist, her fingers trembling. Her mind raced. Was it Ethan and his friends? Or was it someone else, someone more dangerous? The room was now heavy with tension, the atmosphere thick with the weight of secrets that had been buried for centuries. Mira's instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't leave the treasure behind. She couldn't leave without understanding what it truly was. Suddenly, the shadows in the corner of the room seemed to shift. A figure stepped forward, his face half hidden by the dim light. It was a man, dressed in dark clothing, his movements smooth and calculated. Mira's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't Ethan. This man was a stranger who clearly knew about the treasure. "You shouldn't have come here," the man said, his voice low and menacing. Mira gripped the knife tighter, her mind spinning. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking but resolute. "What do you want?" The man stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with a strange mix of admiration and greed. "I could ask you the same thing, Miss Mira," he replied coldly, "but I already know. You're looking for something that doesn't belong to you." He paused, his gaze flicking to the chest on the pedestal. "That treasure, it's not just a relic. It's a curse. And you've awakened it." The air seemed to thicken, as though the very room was holding its breath. Mira's mind raced. What did he mean by a curse? Was the treasure more than just riches? "I don't understand," she said, backing away slowly. "What do you mean?" The man smiled, but it was a cruel, empty smile. "This treasure was hidden for a reason. Those who sought it before you, they disappeared, vanished without a trace. They were never seen again. You think you can just take what's not yours without consequences?" Mira's pulse quickened. Was this man some sort of treasure hunter like Ethan? Or was he something else entirely? "I don't want trouble," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm just trying to understand what's going on." The man shook his head slowly, as if he pitied her. "You'll understand soon enough. You think you're the first to come looking. There's a group of us. We've been tracking this treasure for years, and we've been waiting for someone like you, someone who would unlock the secrets of this place." Mira's heart dropped. The man's words hit her like a ton of bricks. She had been followed. This wasn't just about treasure. It was about something much bigger. "You don't know what you're dealing with," the man continued. "That chest, it holds the key to the island's power, the power that keeps it hidden from the world. Once it's opened, there's no going back." Mira felt a cold sweat break out on her skin. She had thought the treasure was just a fortune waiting to be claimed, but now she realized it was something far more dangerous. It wasn't just a relic, it was a force that could change everything. Before she could react, the man lunged toward her, grabbing her arm with a vice-like grip. Mira screamed, but his hand clamped over her mouth, silencing her. "You're coming with me," he hissed, his eyes cold and unfeeling. But just as he began to pull her toward the chest, a loud crash echoed through the cave. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the wall seemed to tremble with an unnatural force. The man released his grip on Mira, his eyes wide with fear. "No," he muttered under his breath, his voice trembling. "It's happening. Mira's heart raced as she watched the chest begin to glow, the symbols on it lighting up one by one. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and the ground beneath their feet shifted, almost as if the island itself was waking up. Mira's eyes widened. The treasure wasn't just a key to wealth, it was the key to something far more powerful. And now, they had awakened it.